Okay. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us today. We are interviewing today Dr. Jerica Sweetnich with Revitalize Medical Group. And hi. We are going to talk about hormones. So I've been seeing, those of you that have been following my story, I've been seeing Jerica, I don't know, several months now. I started seeing her for a couple different things, and it led into hormone testing, which I'll let her get into. But I see this all over social media. I see so many moms talking about how they're run down, they have no energy, constantly tired, especially breastfeeding moms, talking about how they have no sex drive, just exhausted.
Yep.
And I was experiencing all of that. And, Anya doesn't sleep the best at night, but even when she did, I would still wake up and be exhausted. And there were days where I would go to the gym and I just couldn't get through a workout, or even just carrying her up and down the stairs, I was just physically exhausted, napping all the time. I just was worn out. And so I came to see Dr. Sweetnich, and she suggested we do some hormone testing. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what we did and go through some examples and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you take over.
Awesome.
Thanks for doing this.
Yes, thank you for having me. This is a topic that, I'm a mom too. Got 2 kids at home, so I'm becoming very passionate about this topic because, just like you said, it's so normalized. It's so normal to be run down as a mom. It's so normal to feel like you have no energy. And that's not normal. You don't have to be like that. So there are definitely things that we can do. And even, just on a kind of sidebar, even periods, I see the same thing with periods in women. I have horrible PMS and I have heavy periods, and you see all the period memes that are out there. Yeah, exactly. You see all the period memes that are out there, and it's not normal to have heavy periods. It's not normal you have painful periods. You shouldn't have that. So that's just kind of a sidebar, but it goes along the same lines. We're normalizing things that shouldn't necessarily be normalized. So that's why I'm very passionate about this. And I'm excited to go over this test with you guys. So I thought we thought that would be a good thing. You just had this test done, and I think it really opened your eyes as to what's going on in your body. And I know that every time I go through this test with my patients, everybody is just blown away because you really get such an in-depth look at your hormones and how they're functioning.
It was a very big aha moment, and it was really good to be able to show my other half who,
right.
I've been saying all this stuff. They don't grasp what's going on with us because they're not up with a baby and they're not exhausted and they're not dealing with it. So to be able to sit down and say, look at this. This is really low. This is, abnormal. This is why I'm feeling it. It was huge for a relationship too, to make sure I understand what my body's going through.
Sure, absolutely. It's always good to have something tangible to show. Yeah, absolutely. So the test is called the Dutch test, and it's a dried urine test. You have to either urinate on these little pieces of paper, or you urinate in a cup, you dip them in there. And the urine allows us to look at the metabolites, or the breakdown products of the hormones. So not only are we seeing the hormone levels, but we're able to see where the hormones go and how they're broken down and utilized in the body. And that's why this test is so awesome, because you can look at hormone levels, and your hormone levels might be normal or they might be low, and your breakdown products might be high or low. So that's why it really gives us this complete picture, and it really allows us to truly treat you from a holistic standpoint and kind of cover a couple more bases than just basic lab work would tell you.
Okay.
So before I do a screen share just a little bit more, this is usually the test that I do with most of my patients. However, there are certain hormones, our bigger hormones, the hormones that are released from the brain, such as luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone. Those 2 hormones are released by the pituitary in the brain, and they tell your ovaries and uterus when to make progesterone and estrogen. And those can't be measured on this test because they're bigger molecules, so those are more better to get done in your blood work. So there's time and a place for this is what I'm kind of getting into. And you might need a little bit additional lab work. It just really depends on you and what you've got going on. But this is kind of my go-to test for most women that come in.
Okay.
Yes. All right. So we wanted to show you guys an example. Can you see this?
I don't see anything. I see you.
Uh-oh, okay. That's why, because I actually had to click share. Share screen. Okay. There we go. Is that better? Okay.
Yep.
So after Brandy and I went through her results, like she said, she's passionate. She wants to show people this test. So we thought it would be a good idea to kind of go through an example of this test with you guys. So if anybody's interested in doing this, you have a grasp of what exactly it is. So this is called the Dutch test. Like I said, it's about, how many pages did we say this was? About 20 pages?
Yeah.
14 pages. So it's intense and it's in depth, but I just want to touch on the big things today so you guys get a good idea of what it is. So this is the summary. So you can see here, we're looking at sex hormones, and then we're also looking at adrenal hormones. So we scroll down, and this page shows us your sex hormones and how you're metabolizing them. So if you look here at the top, this guy, pregnenolone, is known as the father of all hormones. This is where really most hormones get made from pregnenolone. So if you go this way to this arrow, you can see progesterone. So progesterone and estrogen we know as our two main female hormones. Estrogen should be high during the first half of the cycle, and then progesterone takes over during the second half of the cycle. And they both have different effects on the body. So here's progesterone, and then you get to see the breakdown products of progesterone. So most women that I see have low levels, just as this example is showing you. The way to read this, I guess I should have started with that. It's a dial, and you see those two stars. That star would be the low end, this star would be the high end, and the dial right there is where this person's level would be. So this person would be really pretty much deficient in progesterone, and that's commonly what I see. So a lot of women that come in that have extremely heavy periods, they have bloating, painful periods, clotting, they usually have high levels of estrogen and low levels of progesterone. Usually, not always, but usually. So again, this person has low levels of progesterone. You see their breakdown products, which are these two, beta-pregnanediol and alpha, and they're low too. Now, what I also see in practice is if somebody has low progesterone, maybe one of these breakdown products is high, and that tells us that you're metabolizing progesterone at a higher rate. So that's, again, why I like this test, because if you just were looking at progesterone, you would have never known. But now that you have the breakdown products, you know. Then we go this way, and this takes us to DHEA, which is produced by our adrenal glands, and then it can be converted into testosterone. So you see here, this person's DHEA is a little bit low, their testosterone's low, and then testosterone can get converted into a couple of different things. So testosterone can go down this pathway and get converted into these metabolites. Or testosterone can actually get converted into estrogens. And a lot of people don't know that, but your testosterone can get converted. So this is a really cool example. We have low testosterone, but if you look at this metabolite, it's extremely high. And then if you look over here, there's actually 3 different types of estrogen. A lot of people just say estrogen. There's 3 different types though. Their estrogens are extremely high. So this patient, probably because of this marker right here, this breakdown product of testosterone, was probably having maybe some facial hair, maybe some acne on their back and on their chest, maybe some erratic cycles because of this high testosterone marker, this testosterone breakdown marker. But also because of the high estrogen, their periods were probably very painful, heavy, had a lot of bloating going on. But if you just did the blood test for testosterone, you would have seen that it was low, and you would have said, oh, no problem, your testosterone's low, the facial hair, the acne, it's not due to the testosterone. So again, this is why I like this test, because you can actually see where these hormones are going. I see this picture a lot in polycystic ovarian syndrome, where they have high levels of one of the breakdown products of testosterone and high estrogen. So it's pretty common. So for this person, one of the things that I might do is give a supplement or a botanical that will actually block this conversion and block this conversion, so that this level of this hormone gets lowered, your estrogens will go down a little bit, and your testosterone boosts up. So you'd have lighter periods, you'd have less painful periods, the acne would go away in the back, the facial hair might go away, and because you're increasing your testosterone, you might feel a little bit better, you might have a little bit more energy and motivation. So again, this is like a perfect example of why I like this test, because it gives you more of an insight as to where your hormones are going in your body.
So the testosterone was one that mine was like really low, if I remember, right?
Yeah.
So that was when you explained it to me. Again, this is a sample test.
Yeah.
And I'm happy if anyone wants to reach out and I can kind of, talk a little bit more about mine. But my testosterone was way low. And so that was part of you were saying like my muscle fatigue.
Yeah, your muscle fatigue.
Tired. My low sex drive.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Those were all big components. You also had some cortisol issues going on. So in cortisol, and I'll get to that. Yeah. But you were kind of creating the perfect storm and having your cortisol issues as well as your testosterone being down. So, and we'll get to the cortisol, but yeah, you basically have the perfect storm going on there, and that explains a lot of your symptoms. Okay, this part I want to talk about now, specific to your estrogens. This is really important. This part down here shows how your estrogens are metabolized. So everybody, I'm sure, is familiar with the word detox and detoxification, and that word has kind of been ruined. But your liver really does do detoxification, and there's 2 steps. So you have phase 1 of detoxification, then phase 2. So these arrows right here, they show your phase 1 detoxification of your estrogens. Okay, remember there's 3 different estrogens. Estrone is the estrogen that should really take over postmenopausally. Estradiol is the one that should be dominant premenopausal. And then estriol is most likely elevated only during pregnancy. You can see this patient had high estradiol, and I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so these estrogens go down these 3 different pathways. You can see there's the green arrow, there's the red arrow, and there's the blue arrow. So let's start with this red arrow, because this red arrow, this is considered the bad pathway. So this red arrow, when estrogen goes down this pathway to be metabolized, it turns into this metabolite, this 4-OH-E1. And then that can further go on, and you can see down here, it says, if not detoxified, 4-OH-E1 can bind and damage DNA. So this is the pathway that's often linked to estrogen-related cancers, your estrogen breast cancers, uterine cancers, and things like that. So that's why this one, when we see this high, we go, we got to fix that. In this patient, you can see it's not too bad, so that's a good sign. And then you have the blue pathway and the green pathway. The blue pathway will take you to this metabolite, which isn't necessarily bad. This is an okay pathway, but really the best pathway to go down is this 2-OH-E1 pathway. Now, if we do have somebody that's more likely going down this pathway or this pathway, as this patient is, we can actually modulate these pathways, and we can give a certain supplement that's actually made from broccoli and Brussels sprouts and cruciferous vegetables. It's called DIM. Taking that can actually push the pathway and push your estrogen metabolism down this good pathway. Okay, so we look at how our estrogens go through phase 1 detoxification. Then once we get down here to this pathway, this metabolite gets converted via methylation pathways and via COMT specifically into this metabolite, and then this metabolite will go out of the body. So you might be doing, your estrogens might be metabolized and going down the green arrow, but then you might have an issue going from this metabolite over to your methylation because you might have low methylation activity. And that's where the whole MTHFR genetic mutation and COMT mutation comes into play, and that's a whole other topic and conversation. But this test can give you some insights as to how those enzymes are working, and possibly if you need further genetic testing.
So that is, to jump in, that's something that you noticed in my test. There was something going on there. And so the next step that we're doing next week actually is genetic testing.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And we talk a lot about that in different groups I'm in, that, the MTHFR and vaccines and just supplements you take and whatnot. So that was a really cool thing for me to learn, and I'm really excited for the genetic testing.
Yes. Maybe we'll do a video on that when we get through that, because that's definitely a big rabbit hole. Just because you have a genetic mutation for something doesn't mean you'll be symptomatic of it.
Right.
It depends on, are you heterozygous, are you homozygous? And again, we can go through that then. But for the sake of this talk, this talk does give you, or this test gives you an insight. Yeah, gives you an insight as to how your methylation pathways are running. So for instance, this person, you can see over here, this fan shows you that they had low methylation activity. So that's when we would, again, go to the genetic testing, maybe give them methylated B vitamins in the meantime, which are going to help push this pathway along and get estrogen properly out of the body. So as far as your sex hormones go, you can really see how in-depth this test goes, which is awesome. And it can really help you to figure out why some of your hormones are off and how you can fix that a little bit. All right. So then we keep going, and this is where we get into the adrenal glands. So this is where we talk about cortisol. And cortisol is something that I've been talking a lot about. It's so important to have a good cortisol rhythm. So normal cortisol levels, cortisol should be high when you wake up in the morning, and then it should peak a little bit after you wake up, and then throughout the day, as you can see on this chart, it should kind of start to go down, and then it should be low at night. And when cortisol is low, your melatonin will go up, and melatonin is your sleep hormone. Okay, so that's how the normal pattern should go. I have so many women specifically that come in and say, I can't get out of bed in the morning. I feel okay, but then I crash during the day, and then I am wide awake at night. And it's because their cortisol levels aren't being produced at the right time. So you can see this example of this patient. The red line would be the patient's value. So they have no cortisol in the morning, virtually none. Their cortisol is extremely low in the morning, low again mid-afternoon, low again night. So this means that this patient they're kind of in the burnout phase.
That's what mine looked like.
Yes, yours was pretty low, absolutely. So you're in just kind of the burnout phase. So we've talked about adrenal fatigue, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of adrenal fatigue. Your adrenals don't actually fatigue. So the whole thought process before was that your adrenals release cortisol, and it's released in the pattern I just explained, but cortisol is also released in response to stress. So if somebody had a ton of stress, like moms, right, your adrenals were constantly pumping out cortisol to the point where they got fatigued and then they couldn't produce it anymore. It's not exactly true. It's a little different than that. So your adrenals don't fatigue. If your adrenals were truly unable to make cortisol, you would have an autoimmune condition called Addison's disease where they can't produce cortisol, and that's completely different. If you're in a life or death situation, your adrenals won't respond. What actually happens is there's a miscommunication between your adrenal glands, which will release the cortisol, and your hypothalamus and pituitary gland, which are in the brain, which talk to your adrenals and tell them to make cortisol and tell them when to make it. So oftentimes when we see patterns like this where your cortisol is just really low, there's a huge miscommunication going on and your body's just not releasing cortisol at the right time and when it should be. So symptoms this patient would be having is just constant fatigue throughout the day. There is absolutely no energy going on here. Sometimes in some people, like I was saying, I'll see the cortisol at the beginning of the day be okay, or it'll be a little bit low, and then it rises midday because that's when they're active, that's when they're taking kids to school, that's when they're making lunches, that's when they're doing everything, and then it'll crash again, and then it'll go up at night. And that's the pattern of being tired in the morning and wired at night. So again, this test kind of shows you where your cortisol levels are throughout the day. But in addition to that, and this is what's really cool, and this example doesn't show it very well, but your cortisol is going to be active. Cortisone is the inactive version of cortisol. And that conversion they go back and forth all throughout the day. But what can actually push cortisol to cortisone is inflammation. That's one of the big things. Your thyroid can mess with cortisol to cortisone levels. So your cortisol might be fine, or your cortisol might be low, and your cortisone level might be really high. That's a whole other issue. That's, again, when you start to look at thyroid, and you look at inflammation and inflammatory markers. So that's a whole other issue that could be going on there too as well. Okay. So then we get down here, and this is called the OATS test, the organic acid test. And this test looks at different vitamins and minerals. So we've got B12, we've got B6, glutathione, And then we look at neurotransmitter metabolism. So you get all of this with this test. That's why I like it, because it's so comprehensive. So you can see if, and I mean B12, B6, glutathione, they're all really important for hormone production, for your liver detoxification to work properly. You can see correlations with some of these markers when you have MTHFR, so not being able to get estrogen out of the body, and in conjunction, again, you won't have as high levels of the B12 and B6. So it really kind of gives you a comprehensive overview of what you've got going on. I don't know how in depth you want to go, or what else you want to talk about, or.
No, that's pretty good. That
I know, I feel like
I went through, and it was very eye-opening for me. I took a lot of notes so I can research things a little more.
Yeah. It is. It's so in depth. So that's why I try to go through kind of the basics, but I don't. It's so easy to be overwhelmed by this stuff, and that's why I always recommend, especially for this test. I think you might be able to order this test online. I'm not completely sure, but please have somebody interpret it, because you can go down the rabbit hole and you can definitely get confused. It's in depth, and then you can sometimes take the wrong thing or something that you don't need to be taking that can make things worse.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess that's kind of the whole point of this call is to, since I started working with you, I've been seeing doctors for my endometriosis, and I've had surgeries, and I've been on medicines, and I've done all this stuff for years. But until I started working with you, I was diagnosed with SIBO by you. That's a whole nother talk that we should do. But you found my SIBO, and then with these hormone tests, you found some issues with my hormones. And so that's why I like to do these talks, is to teach people what NDs like you can do and the importance of seeing you. And, even with what to take, like I'm not going to get into anything that you've prescribed to me or that you've recommended to me, because I don't want people ordering it on their own.
Sure.
But I want to say that, if you go to a doctor, typically with some of these issues, they're going to put you on like a drug or something synthetic. And what I really like about working with you is that, you have me on supplements. I'm on natural supplements. I'm breastfeeding, which I don't know if I'm on the video. I can only see your screen, but my little milk monster wanted milk. Of course, as she always does when I record these videos, which is why I'm always so tired. So I'm sitting here feeding her. But, you took thought into what I should be taking and what was safe with breastfeeding. And I know we went back and forth over different supplements a few times. And so I want people to understand that and to look into NDs. And if you're local, Dr.
It is
in Akron. Like if you're local, they'll see. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Oh, sorry, my computer was kind of breaking up. I don't remember what it was going to say. It was something. Oh, this was what I was going to say. This is something that I'm very passionate about, especially for moms, especially when you're in the postpartum period, or if you're not even in the postpartum period, just being a mom in general. You have so much stress. You have so many things going on. You're feeling fatigued. You're not thinking clearly. You're gaining weight. You've got all these issues. And oftentimes what happens, and I'm not trying to knock any medical system, but oftentimes what happens is you go and you try to get help, and they tell you you have anxiety or depression, and then you get put on an anti-depression medication or an anti-anxiety medication, and then that can cause issues in certain people. So then the cycle just continues, and it does not have to be that way. It goes back to what we were saying in the beginning of what we've normalized in our society, especially for women, is not normal. You don't have to live like that, and there are always things that you can do to investigate further and get to the root cause.
No, absolutely. And that was something you and I talked about. Anya's my third child, and when I had my second, I was experiencing a lot of these same issues. And I went to the doctor, and they told me that I had postpartum, and they put me on, I was on like 3 different antidepressants because I kept going back and saying, this isn't working. So they'd switch it to a different one. Well, this isn't working. And they'd switch it to a different one. And it wasn't working because I wasn't depressed. I'm guessing I had some of these same hormonal issues going on, and an antidepressant's not going to fix that.
Sure. Right. Exactly. You always have to dig a little deeper and find out what exactly is going on.
So we'll wrap this up by saying, you know, this is definitely something, all the moms out there that are experiencing this, definitely find an ND. If you join our group, Healthy Hustlers, and I'll leave all that in the blog, you know, we can help guide you to NDs in your area. There's we have people all over the country in the group, but
functional medicine providers too.
Functional medicine providers. Yeah, that's the point of my whole group is people get on there and ask for medical questions, and that's, I mean, you're going to get that all over. But my goal with that, just so everyone knows, because I've been getting on there and telling people be careful asking for any kind of advice. My goal is to help you connect with providers in your area, because that's truly the goal, is to, you know, obviously treat things naturally like we do. But even when we do natural treatments, like when my daughter has an ear infection, I seek a doctor, and I have a doctor follow my natural treatments, just because I'm not a doctor, just to make sure that I'm not missing anything or doing anything wrong. So I just want to reiterate that. But if you're in the Akron area, even, you know, Cleveland, whatever, you know, Dr. Sweetnitch is with Revitalize Medical Group. Definitely check her out. I'll put her info in there. Do you do phone consultations or in-person consultations? How's that work?
Yeah, we do in office or we do phone consultations as well. It just kind of depends. It depends on the patient and what you're needing, and if there are prescriptive needs. If there's not, I cannot prescribe, but I work with medical doctors that do. And for some of those situations, you do have to be in office at least once a year or twice a year. Just depends. But we do often do phone consultations because we know everybody's busy, right? Which is probably the issue. But yeah, we try to work with people as best we can.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, definitely seek out an ND in your area if you need help. If you're not local to us and you're in another state, you know, we're happy to try and find recommendations. But this was very eye-opening for my family. So I thank you so much for everything you've done to help us. Like, it's been so amazing for me that we're bringing Mike in next week.
Yeah.
Just to have him go through and see, you know, if there's anywhere he's deficient or any way you can help him. So if you put the money in up front with an ND and with eating properly and all of that, I feel like you pay less later.
Yeah, absolutely.
With like healthcare, you know, diseases or healthcare issues that arise because you're keeping your body healthy. And so that's our family's goal. And that's why I wanted to share this talk, because I see so many moms, and I was that mom commenting, "Oh my God, girl, me too. I'm doing the same thing." And now I'm like, "Oh, I have an answer. You should reach out to my ND. She can help you."
Yes, amen. Exactly. Yes, we got to change the conversation. So thank you for having me, and
yes,
love doing this and just spreading the word as much as we can.
I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
No problem. Have a good day.
You too. Bye. Bye, Anya.
Bye.